Welcome back guys, Ben here, and today we're checking out new games coming out in June 2026. June is looking a little lighter than some of the huge months we've had recently, but don't let that fool you. There's still some really interesting games releasing over the next few weeks. We've got everything from classic RPG remakes and first-person fantasy adventures to survival crafters, roguelites, co-op horror games, and large-scale military shooters. As always, all the games features as PC titles coming to Steam, as we are predominantly a PC channel. Prices included where known at the time of recording. Those prices will be in pounds sterling unless otherwise stated. Just in case I sound a little bit off in this video, I am battling with a flu or a tonsillitis or something like that. My throat and nose is all like bunged up, so if I do sound more nasally than normal, I do apologize. But there's no one else I could get to do this voiceover. I'm not going to be doing AI for voiceovers or anything like that. So we're cracking on so that you guys have this video still. So please bear with me, and I hope it's not too bad. And if you are enjoying discovering new and interesting games, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But for now, let's jump straight into it. Fatekeeper is a first-person fantasy action RPG that has been getting a surprising amount of attention recently, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. At first glance, it feels like modern revival of games such as Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, Hexen, and other classic first-person fantasy RPGs that focused heavily on melee combat, exploration, and player choice. Combat looks fast, weighty, and brutal, with swords, magic, and environmental interactions all playing a role in how you approach encounters. The game takes place in a handcrafted fantasy world filled with ruins, monsters, hidden paths, and secrets to uncover. Character progression appears to be a major focus as well, allowing you to specialize into different playstyles, whether that's raw strength, agility-based combat, or powerful sorcery. What makes Fatekeeper even more impressive is that it's being developed by a team of just 13 people. Looking at the visuals, animations, and overall production quality, you'd be forgiven for thinking this was being made by a much larger AAA studio. If you're a fan of first-person RPGs, fantasy worlds, and combat-focused adventures, this is definitely one worth watching. Fatekeeper releases into early access on the 2nd of June. There's no demo or pricing that's been announced for this at the time of recording. Gothic 1 Remake is probably one of the most important RPG releases of the month, especially if you're a fan of classic role-playing games. For those unfamiliar with the original, Gothic was one of the most influential European RPGs ever made and helped shape many of the more open-world RPG ideas that would later appear in games like the Witcher series, for example. This remake brings players back to the Valley of Mines, a brutal prison colony where survival isn't guaranteed, and every faction, NPC, and creature has its own place within the world. One of the things that made the original so memorable was how alive the world felt. NPCs followed routines, factions reacted to your choices, and exploration wasn't guided by dozens of map markers telling you where to go. Sure, it had its little bit of jank, and it's rather dated nowadays, but this is what Gothic 1 Remake is aiming to address. The remake isn't just updating the visuals either. The developers have expanded storylines, added new side content, improved NPC behaviors, and fleshed out parts of the world that weren't fully realized in the original release. The goal seems to be preserving everything fans loved while modernizing the experience for a new audience. If you've never played Gothic before, this could be the perfect opportunity to see why so many RPG fans still talk about it more than 20 years later, and if you're already a fan of the original, this looks like it could be one of the most faithful remakes we've seen in recent years. Gothic 1 Remake releases on the 5th of June, and it's currently priced at £41.99. There's also a demo available on Steam if you want to get a taste of the world before launch. Solarpunk is one of my most anticipated releases this month and feels like a really interesting blend of survival crafting, automation, and just cozy base building. Set amongst floating islands high above the clouds, you'll be gathering resources, building your own home, growing food, and gradually expanding your technology using renewable energy systems such as solar, wind, and water power. It's a refreshing change from the usual post-apocalyptic survival formula where everything is bleak and falling apart. What immediately stands out is the atmosphere. The world is bright, colourful, and optimistic, leaning heavily into the Solarpunk aesthetic of sustainability, nature, and technological progress working together rather than against each other. There's also a strong automation element here. As you progress, you'll be able to create increasingly complex production chains and automate systems to help gather resources and expand your floating settlement. In that sense, it feels like a little bit of Satisfactory or Factorio DNA mixed into a much more relaxed survival crafting experience. You can also build and customize your own airship, allowing you to travel between the islands, discover new resources, and continue expanding your operation. For fans of survival crafting games, automation systems, and relaxing sandbox experiences, this feels like one of the most promising indie releases of the month, and it's going to have co-op at launch as well, so you'll be able to play with a friend or solo, depending on what you prefer. Solarpunk releases on the 8th of June. No demo or pricing has been announced at the time of recording. Voidling Bound is one of the most unique games releasing this month, blending creature collection, RPG progression, and third-person shooter combat into one package. Rather than fighting alongside companions, you actually take direct control of creatures known as Voidlings, each with their own attacks, abilities, and combat styles. You'll be shooting, slashing, and dashing and unleashing powerful abilities as you battle your way across corrupted planets filled with hostile creatures and bosses. What really makes the game stand out, though, is the progression system. Every Voidling can be leveled up, customized, and evolved through branching evolution paths that alter their appearance, abilities, elemental alignment, and playstyle. You specialize them in different ways depending on how you want to approach the combat. Beyond that, there's also a surprisingly deep breeding system. You'll rescue eggs, hatch new Voidlings, discover rare traits, and combine genetics to create increasingly powerful creatures. As you build out your collection, you'll unlock new synergies and options for tackling tougher challenges. This game also features handcrafted planets to explore, missions to complete, bosses to defeat, and an endgame challenge system known as the Abyss, where players can continue pushing their creatures against increasingly difficult encounters for better rewards. Honestly, this feels less like a roguelite and more like a blend of Pokemon, Palworld, and a third-person action RPG, with a much greater emphasis on directly controlling and developing your creatures. For me, this is actually one of the most interesting games releasing in June, simply because I haven't seen many games attempt this particular combination of ideas. Voidling Bound releases on the 9th of June. The demo is available now on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. Witchspire is an open-world survival crafting game that blends magic, creature collecting, and exploration into one colourful fantasy adventure. Set in a magical world filled with strange creatures, resources, and mysteries to uncover, you'll be gathering materials, crafting equipment, building up your base, and gradually expanding your magical abilities as you progress through the world. One of the features that immediately stands out is the creature system. Throughout your journey, you'll discover, tame, and collect a variety of magical creatures that can accompany you on your adventures, helping to make the world feel much more alive than a traditional survival game. Also, a strong focus on progression and exploration. As you unlock new spells, equipment, and crafting options, you'll be able to venture further into the world, uncover new resources, and take on increasingly dangerous challenges. The game can be played either solo or cooperatively with friends, which should make gathering resources, building settlements, and exploring the world together a lot of fun if the multiplayer experience lands well. I actually played this during the Steam Next Fest earlier this year and came away pleasantly surprised. It still felt quite early in development, but the foundations were there and it definitely showed a lot of potential. It'll be interesting to see how much content and progression is available when early access launches. For fans of survival crafting games, creature collectors, and fantasy sandbox adventures, this could end up being one of the more interesting indie releases of the month. Witchspire releases into early access on the 10th of June. No demo or pricing information is currently available at the time of recording. SpaceCraft was originally due to release in May, but has now slipped slightly into June, which gives the developers a little bit more time to polish what is already shaping up to be a very promising sandbox space game. I actually spent some time with the demo already and came away pretty impressed. The easiest comparison is probably No Man's Sky and Star Citizen, but watered down on both of those, particularly because you can seamlessly travel from space down to the planetary surfaces without loading screens, but beyond that the game has a very different focus. Rather than being heavily focused on exploration and discovery, SpaceCraft leans much more into progression, resource gathering, and eventually automation. Harvesting materials, expanding your operation, and gradually building towards larger and more efficient systems, all trying to pay off the enormous debt attached to your ship. The debt mechanic actually gives the game a nice sense of direction. Instead of simply surviving for survival's sake, there's a clear goal pushing you forward and encouraging you to expand your operation further. The roadmap also looks quite ambitious, with additional automation systems, progression features, and content planned beyond the early access launch. Performance during the demo was surprisingly solid as well, which is always reassuring for a game of this scale. If you're a fan of games like No Man's Sky, Astroneer, Satisfactory, or other progression-focused sandbox experiences, this is definitely one worth watching. SpaceCraft releases into early access on the 11th of June, the demo is available now on Steam, and pricing has not yet been announced. Rather than being a direct sequel, STARSEEKER Astroneer Expeditions expands the universe of Astroneer in a new direction by focusing on cooperative expeditions, larger-scale objectives, and shared adventures across space. Players will be launching from a massive orbital station known as the ESS STARSEEKER and venturing into dangerous sectors to uncover mysteries, gather resources, and complete expedition objectives. The original Astroneer built a loyal fan base thanks to its colourful art style, relaxing exploration, and accessible sandbox gameplay, and it looks like STARSEEKER is trying to retain that sense of discovery by adding more structure and purpose to the experience. Visually, it still has that distinctive Astroneer identity, but the scale appears much larger this time around. There are more environmental hazards, larger objectives, and a greater emphasis on teamwork and exploration than we've seen previously. I'm particularly interested to see how the expedition system works in practice, because it could end up providing a stronger, long-term gameplay loop than the original game's more open-ended sandbox approach. If you're already a fan of Astroneer, it feels like an easy recommendation. If you've never played Astroneer before, this could actually end up becoming a great entry point into the universe. STARSEEKER Astroneer Expeditions releases into early access on the 11th of June and is expected to launch for $29.99 with regional pricing. Denshattack is probably one of the most visually unique games releasing this month, and honestly it's unlike almost anything else on this list. Set in a colourful Japanese-inspired dystopian world, you take control of a heavily customised train and race through vibrant environments, performing tricks, boosting across obstacles and chaining together movements in increasingly stylish ways. The train itself is the star of the show. Rather than simply travelling from point A to B, you're jumping, flipping, grinding and pulling off tricks as you navigate the world, turning movement into the core gameplay experience. Think like a skate game or something like that, but with a train instead. Visually, it has a huge amount of personality. Between the bright colours, distinctive art style and unusual premise, it's the kind of game that immediately grabs your attention the moment you see it in motion. What I like most about this is that it feels genuinely different. In a month filled with RPGs, survival games and shooters, Denshattack is doing something completely in its own lane. Sometimes those are the games that end up being cult favorites because nobody else is making anything quite like them. If you're looking for something weird, stylish and completely different from everything else releasing this month, Denshattack might be worth a look. Denshattack releases on the 17th of June and there's no pricing announced just yet. Backrooms Lost Runners is taking the familiar Backrooms concept and turning it into a cooperative survival horror experience which feels like a natural fit for the setting. Rather than simply wandering endless yellow hallways on your own, you'll be working together with other players to explore, survive and ultimately escape an ever-changing labyrinth of liminal spaces filled with dangers lurking around every corner. Like many Backrooms inspired games, a big part of the appeal comes from the atmosphere. The developers are leaning heavily into that unsettling feeling of being somewhere that looks familiar but feels completely wrong. Empty office spaces, abandoned corridors and strange industrial environments all contribute to that sense of unease. What separates this from many other backroom games is the multiplayer focus. Communication, coordination and staying together appear to be critical if you want to survive. Also promises to have a voice reactive AI and immersive puzzles as well to really add to that gameplay too. And of course, anyone who has played a co-op horror game knows staying together is often easier said than done. The demo has already attracted a fair amount of attention, and given how popular cooperative horror games continue to be on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, could end up finding a sizable audience if the full release delivers. Not to mention, Backrooms just had a film release as well, didn't they, in the cinema? It seems like this is releasing at the right time. If you're a fan of games like Lethal Company, Escape the Backrooms, or other co-op horror experiences, this is definitely one worth keeping an eye on. Backrooms Lost Runners releases on the 17th of June. The demo is available now on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. Hell Let Loose Vietnam is easily one of the biggest multiplayer releases of the month and marks a major new chapter for the franchise. For those unfamiliar with Hell Let Loose, the series has built a reputation for large-scale tactical warfare, realistic combat and teamwork-focused gameplay instead of fast-paced arcade shooting. Success depends on communication, coordination and understanding your role with a much larger battle. Vietnam takes that formula and moves it into an entirely new setting. Dense jungles, hidden tunnel networks, difficult visibility, and asymmetric warfare all create a very different battlefield compared to the wide open European maps of the original game. That change in the environment should have a significant impact on how matches play out. Expect more ambushes, closer engagements, and a much greater emphasis on situational awareness. In many ways, Vietnam feels like the perfect setting for the slower tactical style of gameplay that Hell Let Loose is known for. The game will feature large-scale battles with infantry, vehicles and coordinated squad play, while also introducing new weapons, equipment and tactical challenges inspired by the conflict. If you're looking for a more realistic military shooter and want something that sits between Battlefield and Squad, this could easily be one of the standout multiplayer releases of the summer. There are, from the recent playtests, some concerns around the performance and optimization at the moment, whether this is going to be ready or not, but we will have to see how that pans out. Hell Let Loose Vietnam releases on the 18th of June for PC. It's going to be priced at £31.49 with the current pre-purchase discount, or £49.49 for the deluxe edition. It will also be coming to consoles on the 4th of August. Maseylia Echoes of the Past is a handcrafted 3D Metroidvania that immediately stands out thanks to its beautifully drawn and strong visual presentation art style. Very reminiscent of Sable if you've played that game as well. Set within the mysterious world of Maseylia, you'll be exploring interconnected environments, uncovering hidden secrets, and gradually unlocking new abilities that allow you to access previously unreachable areas. Like any good Metroidvania, progression is tied closely to exploration and mastering your growing toolkit of abilities. The game's world appears to place a strong emphasis on environmental storytelling, ancient ruins, forgotten locations, and mysterious creatures helping build a sense of history and discovery as you progress. What caught my attention most is the art direction. The artwork is genuinely impressive, with richly detailed environments and fluid animations. Kind of got that cel-shaded look with like the hard lines and nice pastel colors. Like I said, For me, very reminiscent of Sable, Chance of Sonar, Rollerdrome, those kind of games, that kind of art style. Not sure if it's technically officially cel-shaded, but you get the idea. Combat also appears to play a significant role, with players combining movement abilities and attacks while taking on increasingly dangerous enemies and bosses throughout their journey. If you're a fan of Hollow Knight, Blasphemous, Ori, or other exploration-focused Metroidvanias, this feels like one worth keeping on your radar. Just a reminder that this is more of a 3D one rather than a 2D Metroidvania, which is quite common for the genre. Maseylia Echoes of the Past releases on the 19th of June. There is a demo available on Steam, so if you want to check it out, see how it runs and also how it plays, you can do that there. There is no pricing at the moment at the time of recording. So that's the main stuff coming out in June 2026 that caught my eye. I think the Nintendo Switch does have Star Fox, like another remake coming out for that, but otherwise that's the, yeah, like I said, we focus on PC stuff here, so that's the majority of the main bits that caught my eye. A few things that I had penciled in here that were delayed, so these are obviously all the ones that are still coming. It's definitely a smaller month compared to some of the monster lineups we've had recently, but honestly, there's so many games here that I want to check out, as well as ones still from previous months. I've got a lot to work through on the backlog. Sometimes it's these quieter months where the hidden gems sneak through and build really passionate communities around them. For me personally, the three I'm most interested in are Fatekeeper, Solarpunk, and Voidling Bound. Fatekeeper is giving me strong Dark Messiah vibes. Solarpunk looks like it could be a really refreshing take on the survival crafting genre, and I enjoyed the demo of that I played a while ago. It's been on my wishlist for a while. And Voidling Bound has all the great ingredients that I look forward to there. I played the demo of that at Steam Next Fest as well, and I have been given a key for that, so we will have coverage of that on the channel. So we'll be able to catch up and watch that when that's released, once the embargo is lifted. That said, Gothic 1 Remake is probably the biggest release of the month overall, and I've never really played the original Gothic. This might be a good one for me to jump into at this point and see how that goes. And obviously SpaceCraft, StarSeeker, like I said, there's some solid entries here. Let me know in the comments which games you're looking forward to the most, and if there's anything released in this month that you think deserves a shout out that I missed maybe. And if you enjoy these monthly roundups, make sure you're subscribed. We are just about to hit, or have just hit, the 10,000 subscribers mark on the channel. Massive thank you for everyone who's been supporting the journey. I really appreciate you. But I also cover demos, first impressions, early access launches, and we do full playthroughs and let's plays and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, if it's an interesting game exploring a new world, we're covering it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment below for the algorithm. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.